Hello, and welcome to the 21st episode of A Woman Robbed, a bonus series from And the Runner-Up Is, where we talk about actresses who may have come close to earning Oscar nominations but were ultimately overlooked or omitted, or for one reason or another just didn't have the votes to make it into the final lineup, discussing why they may have deserved to get in and why they ultimately did not. Each episode has its own theme, presented as a double feature, and this week we're going to be covering two performances from the 2010s that did not earn Oscar nominations. And my guest today is someone I absolutely love having on the show every time. Grateful to call him a friend. He joined me for two Best Actress episodes covering the lineups of 1959 and 1995 from the This Had Oscar Buzz podcast. Welcome back to the show, Chris Feil.
I am so happy to be back. I was thrilled when you invited me back for these two movies in particular.
Mm-hmm.
Big fan of both.
Yeah.
Both the movies and the performances.
Talking about things from the 21st century for once. I'm always inviting you on for old things, you know?
The 21st century, but also today. Like, this pairing of movies is just like a real doom scrolling experience. It did feel like picking a scab, much like, you know, opening any type of timeline or reading any bit of news. Welcome to, shall we say, the current moment by way of the aughts.
Yes, now more than
the
ever.
Teens.
Truly, yes. So
now more than ever, we need a planet to collide into ours while there is an uprising of some kind.
Everyone joining hands and just welcoming that rogue planet. So, yes, let's get into it. So I presented to my patrons here at And the Runner-Up Is a list of 15 of the most notable performances of the 2010s that weren't nominated. Get a load of this list. The choices were Awkwafina in The Farewell, Marion Cotillard in Rust and Bone, Viola Davis in Widows, Julie Delpy in Before Midnight, Anna Dorval in Mommy, Kirsten Dunst in Melancholia, Rebecca Hall in Christine, Vicky Krieps in Phantom Thread, Brie Larson in Short Term 12, Lupita Nyong'o in Us, Emma Stone in Easy A, Charlize Theron in Mad Max Fury Road, Charlize Theron again in Young Adult, Kristen Wiig in Bridesmaids, and Alfre Woodard in Clemency.
I mean, that's like nothing but heaters. Like, those are all these are like fall on a sword somehow, listener,
right?
Because no bad options there.
Truly couldn't have gone wrong, no matter what.
You couldn't have gone wrong. Though I do think maybe the two that were victorious are the ones that maybe should be, or that I would throw my weight behind with the vote.
Yeah, definitely.
Interesting that they still made it out, though. Who was the least lucky? Can we say? Do we know?
I will mention that. I will just say third place within that group with Kirsten Dunst and Lupita Nyong'o actually surprised me a little bit. It was Kristen Wiig for Bridesmaids, which was really cool to see.
Well, who doesn't like Bridesmaids?
That's true. That's true. I just don't know if it's always mentioned as like obvious Oscar snub, Kristen Wiig. But
sure,
in a way that she kind of is. So I believe the lowest placing was Anne Dorval, just because of maybe, you know, name recognition. Hadn't seen that sort of thing.
That's an incredible performance, though. I mean, Xavier Dolan is nobody's favorite. I am a Dolan apologist.
Sure. Okay, fair enough. Let me just double check that. Yes, that is correct. And Dorval got a measly 2 votes from that poll. So
good for both of you.
Yes.
I support you. I see you.
There are 2 of you. Yes. So anyway, let's talk first just sort of broadly about the 2010s overall in film, if you had any perspective on this, because, you know, it's tough to sort of separate sometimes because technically we are now in the 2020s. You know, just curious where you were emotionally, culturally, following the movies, following Oscars, following actresses this decade. Anything you want to talk about?
The 2010s, I moved back to Columbus after college. I'm in Columbus, Ohio, listeners, if you're not familiar. Very tumultuous decade, perhaps dwarfed by the current one in which we are living. As far as actresses go, generally, I think a fun decade. I mean, this is the decade where we do get Julianne Moore her Oscar. I am of the generation where we were so beleaguered and aggrieved that it hadn't happened. So I
Upset and
can't.
chagrined. Yes.
Yes, yes. And I think this is probably a Best Actress decade that gets better and better, but then maybe also the big snubs are also better and better. And maybe, work that in the previous decade wouldn't have had as much of a shot now does. And maybe especially today we're talking about even one of these performances is what, 5-6 years old, would maybe have a better shot in the 2020s even than they had in the 2010s.
Yep. That was going to be one of my points later on. Put a pin in that.
We'll get there. We'll get back.
For sure. Yeah. Well, for me, the 2010s are when I really started getting into cinema trademark on a very serious level, I would say, compared to the 2000s. I just became much more hardcore in my seeking out of any kind of film, not just the mainstream American, things that were put in theaters, and that's it. So, obviously, just speaking to broad trends, it's hard not to note how kind of depressing it was to see some of the major studios taking fewer and fewer risks on adult-oriented films, which has only sadly been exponential in the 2020s. I definitely think there was like an inflection point around 2013, 2014 with the rise of Netflix and that, House of Cards and Orange is the New Black, and how that kind of like spurred this whole thing of, I don't know, just some kind of like irrevocable split that just like the toothpaste could not go back into the tube.
A
Mixing
schism
metaphors
in the culture.
Yes. But in terms of actresses and Oscars, definitely a fun decade. More independent leaning films definitely getting more recognition this decade. I remember a lot of like indie spirit Oscar crossover. So, but it's also a decade with a lot of heartbreaking snubs and omissions, to your point, that just infuriate me, especially. And performances like the two that we're going to talk about today that were actually acclaimed at the time. It's not like they were just like these hidden gems that never had a chance. Like there was a narrative for both of them, conceivably, but there was just, for some reason, a bit of a disconnect with the industry. So excited to unpack that.
And maybe one of these movies was torpedoed by its own director who cannot keep their mouth shut.
What do you mean? What are you talking about Jordan Peele like that for?
Jordan Peele would never.
Kidding. Yes. We will get to that as well. Okay, unless you have anything else, we can get into our first one.
Let's get into it.
Okay, well, nothing like jumping right into the deep end of the pool here with Kirsten Dunst in Melancholia.
The earth is evil. We don't need to grieve for it. What? Nobody will miss it. But where would Leo grow up? All I know is life on Earth is evil. There may be life somewhere else, but there isn't. How do you know? Because I know things.
We've never discussed Kirsten Dunst on the Best Actor series, obviously, shamefully for the Academy. So I'll just do a quick little introduction here for people. Kirsten, born in New Jersey. She started modeling at the age of 3 in TV commercials and made her film debut in Woody Allen's New York Stories in 1989 when she was only 6 years old. So then, eventually, she had a real breakthrough in 94 when she started an Interview with a Vampire. She was also in Little Women that same year, and it was off to the races from there. She was in Jumanji the next year. She was in Wag the Dog. She was in Drop Dead Gorgeous and Dick, kind of sort of entering a new phase at the turn of the century with films like The Virgin Suicides and Bring It On, and became a megastar thanks to her role as Mary Jane in the original Spider-Man trilogy. She also was in some This had Oscar buzz movies, perhaps, like Mona Lisa Smile and Elizabethtown, right? So it's kind of a mainstream era for Kirsten in the 2000s, plus, of course, Marie Antoinette. Sort of a part of that. I would say that's a exception, perhaps. I don't know if you've done that yet.
We haven't, though I would love
But
to
you
because
should.
I love that movie.
Yeah.
And always love talking about Sofia Coppola.
Yes. Right. So she's collaborating here with Lars von Trier for the first time. Well, first and only time, I should say. But she,
you know.
But she was not the initial casting choice here because Lars von Trier sort of developed his idea for Melancholia through his discussions with Penelope Cruz, who really wanted to work with him, but she couldn't make it work because of scheduling. So he offered Kirsten the role after that. Who knows?
And
how
I
that would have
believe
been.
scheduling with the Pirates of the Caribbean movie, if
Yeah.
I'm not incorrect.
That does math out. That is when it came out, 2011. So,
I'm sure that's Disney money talking, but all respect to Rob Marshall picking the Marshall over the Von Trier. But to our benefit, because we get this
right, exactly.
Kirsten Dunst performance.
Yeah.
And even if it was developed with Penelope Cruz, I think this is a very personal role for Dunst. She was open at the time talking about her own struggles with mental health and how that informed her performance. And I think, those of us who have had, mental health struggles in the past find a lot to identify with in this film and this performance. I've seen people call it, the greatest performance of a mental health struggle ever. I think there's a certain level of experience that she brings to it that allows the movie to be very, very darkly funny for those of us who find familiarity in her character's journey in this movie. I think it's rare to see something that was developed for a different performer that still feels maybe even more at home with somebody else. We have a few instances of that, where things were famously originally somebody else's role and then someone else steps in.
Yeah, definitely. So to give my own version sort of a 60-second plot description as you do on your show. This is a psychological sci-fi-ish drama about two sisters, Justine and Claire, played by Kirsten Dunst and Charlotte Gainsbourg, grappling with the end of the world. So the first part, which is labeled Justine, that's Dunst's character. It's all centered around her wedding reception at Claire's grand castle. So she's gotten married to Michael, played by Alexander Skarsgård. And over the course of the reception, she starts to slip into a depression that leads to her ultimately breaking up with Michael, getting herself fired from her job, and sort of being left with nothing. But she also spots an incident in the sky, which is that the star Antares has disappeared. So then part 2, subtitled Claire, takes place sometime later, and Justine arrives at Claire and her husband's castle, having fully sunk into depression, and things take a turn when we learn that the reason for the star's disappearance is because of a rogue planet called Melancholia that's expected to nearly collide with Earth before moving away again, which freaks out Claire, but Justine seems oddly at peace with that, and we'll talk more about the ending later on. So, yes, I would love to know further from you, Chris, what your relationship is with Miss Kirsten Dunst overall and her performance here.
I've always loved her. She's one of those performers that I feel like I grew up with, because I was kind of a 90s kid. Always felt like she's been underrated because things like Dick, which she is perfect in, she and Michelle Williams give a perfect comedic performance in that movie. It's a generation of like those type of performances, and performers weren't really given their due by nature of the type of movies they were doing and people not taking them seriously, even though, how seriously do you take a goofy comedy, but you can still respect it, because I'm not out here like there is profundity in a movie like Dick. But no, there's excellence in a movie like Dick.
There is excellence in Dick.
Right. And I've always thought that she, was snubbed from the very beginning with something like Interview with a Vampire, where I think she's phenomenal. Like, I'm not usually a proponent of child performances, but like that's one of the greats of my lifetime. And, when she eventually in recent years, or in the past like 5 years, does get that recognition for Power of the Dog, it was very, very satisfying, but I also feel like it was not enough. She deserves to have an Oscar in her hands. And I think maybe if, more recognition was thrown at something like this movie, that could have happened. If she'd had a little bit more, if that wasn't her first dance with Oscar. But I mean, I'm saying that she won Best Actress at Cannes, which is, there's not a lot of American actresses that can say that. So it's not like she won some major critics prizes or was like runner up for some. So it's not like this is an unheralded performance, but this was some kind of at least leveling up for her critically in the type of reviews that she got and the type of notice that she was given. If it didn't necessarily provide a career boost for her. Yeah, I adore this performance and I adore her.
Yeah. I also love her. Not to be like parasocial about it, but she definitely seems like one of those actresses who I'd just love to be friends with. Like, she seems like a true cinephile. I love whenever people post that quote of her when asked about if there are any movies that she hadn't seen yet in that award season. She's like, no, I saw everything because I'm a member of the Academy.
Mm-hmm.
Period.
And she just gives a good interview too, because I remember, I think it was for Vanity Fair, she did the career thing, and she's like, "There's just some scripts you say yes to," and she's like, "Maybe not Lars. Maybe Lars, you want to read that first." And it's like, yeah.
I love whenever she does that little cringe face. It's perfect. I feel really like seen at that moment.
Absolutely. So yeah, she doesn't seem to be someone who takes herself too seriously, but also can do very serious, strong work.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't work out for her and Jesse, love does not exist. Love is not
God.
real.
I know.
It will work for none of us if it does. If they can't make it work, because their love is so pure.
Yeah.
And also, like, she is kind of like a secret meme queen, because also one of my favorite from recent seasons is the smoking lounge, where it's like her, Justine Triet, and Jesse just smoking and hanging out, avoiding the show.
See, like, you just want to hang out with her. She's just cool. And I love her as an actress, even though I tend to prefer the more theatrical, the Glenn Close types, as we know, but she is much more understated. But there is just such a thoughtfulness, I think, to her approach more often than not that I'd appreciate, especially here. I mean, this is just such a juicy part for her to sink her teeth into. And I definitely feel like this was a real leveling up in terms of her entering a space in her career where, like, auteur directors beyond Sofia Coppola saw her potential beyond just being like cute, likable mainstream movie star, and she really kind of felt empowered to take on much more challenging material here, and I think she's kind of carried that ever since to some degree.
Yeah. She doesn't get to be as funny as she was maybe 20 years ago. Like, those are not the roles that she's really afforded now. But she's also to do like the serious actress work now that she was maybe denied when she was younger because she was a young performer. But yeah, and yet she still keeps her cool factor and charm in interviews and such.
Right. But yes,
and like I said, I do think that there are parts of this performance that are funny, especially opposite Charlotte Gainsbourg, who has to grow to be frantic, and as she does, it's like Dunst just mellows out into the low level hum of a serious depressive episode, that the juxtaposition of which I think Dunst makes very funny at times.
Yeah, I mean, I think she's really able to express something that I think very few actors or even directors sort of have been able to capture when it comes to depression and all the different angles of it beyond just a kind of surface level sadness of it. Like, there's just a level of intelligence I think she has sort of inherently, to speak to what we've been talking about, that slightly snarky sort of cynicism that really just lends itself to this character. And I feel like there may be some shared commonality even with these two performances we're talking about today, where both of them could have been not very believable, or maybe even unintentionally funny, just in terms of the amount of risk being asked of both of them. But
well, they're both incredibly physical performances, not in the same way, but I do think of Dunst as a pretty physical performer just in her expressiveness. And there is like a posture that she's able to strike throughout this film that feels very true to the lived experience that she's had and other people have had. And just like her down to her facial expression too. Like you hate to reduce acting to like, what are they doing with their face? But it is,
I
she
do it
is
all the
a
time on the Best Actress series, so no shame in that.
But there is a lot of specificity there that I think another actress wouldn't quite capture the way that she does it.
Yeah, a lot of internal work. I think she really kind of fills in the gaps of who this person has been up to this point, just kind of showing this lifetime of dealing with this and just being part of this very toxic family that is not helping matters for her. And
I mean, they just live in a damn castle for no reason.
Yeah,
They're,
exactly.
Yeah.
And Lord knows her mother is not going to be of great help, played by the great Charlotte Rampling. Just really, I mean, a 2-scene wonder, I think, by the way, Charlotte Rampling there. But what with her kind of getting to a place by the end where even if you may not approach the end of the world in the way that she does necessarily, she makes it feel like a very understandable choice that is mature and oddly comes out of it being like the most healthy person by the end, even if it's ultimately kind of just like fatalistic sort of stuff.
If she's like, bring on the asteroid in the way that many of us are thinking, or bring on an entire planet.
Yeah. Leading up to it, like in the beginning, seems to have things together. She's like saying hello to one of the horses in the stable, and it's like for a while at the wedding reception, she kind of has like this sort of amiable sort of smile, but then it just seems to gradually fade when her parents start to argue at the table, and her mom is making a big deal about not believing in marriage and tells her to enjoy it while it lasts, which is just a wild thing to say at your daughter's wedding reception.
Right.
But, Charlotte Rampling can do that and sort of be like, oh, I know that person. But anyway.
A real Charlotte Rampling type.
You could say, yes. But we do get those little hints of Justine's struggle, like when her father says something to the effect of like, I've never seen you look so happy, or when Claire kind of pulls her aside and tells her to not make any scenes, and you can just sort of see from her face that slight discontent and the increasing numbness there, that like the high of this wedding and whatever has already faded, and she's just kind of settled back into being like, okay, well, this, I thought maybe if I could do this, I could get to a new phase in my life and maybe be comfortable at least and happy, but it's already kind of like deflated for me,
Yeah. So much of part one is about showing the attempt to, I guess, wall, for lack of a better word, the attempt to put up a face, put up a wall of everything is okay that goes hand in hand with, the actual internal feelings until you really kind of can't keep that wall up anymore. And she has that moment with Rampling where she's like, I try and I try and I try. And it's almost like she's convincing her sister, that like she's doing what she's supposed to be doing. She's, trying to make this happen, be happy for everyone and, be the quintessential bride for this day and for the family. And, it's what's revealing about it is the attempt that, she has to even try.
Thank you for listening to this preview of A Woman Robbed, a bonus series from And the Runner-Up Is. If you liked what you heard and want to hear more, please go to patreon.com/andtherunnerup.is and become a patron. Only $3 a month will get you access to bonus episodes and early access to regular episodes. Thank you so much for your consideration.